Hello YouTubers, this is the noobifier. Due to a trip, becoming sick for a little bit, some other things going on in the background, this video is releasing quite late, so I feel the need to say sorry for the delay and thanks for understanding to OBSBOT. Also, for total transparency, they sent products for review, but after some initial testing, both my wife and I were so impressed by its unique features that we both ended up upgrading our webcams to OBSBOT from Amazon. I've never actually been so compelled to pay for new gear based on my own review. So with that head note out of the way, we begin. At its core, the OBSBOT camera is a pointable webcam, but that description doesn't fully do it justice because it's actually very good. It's able to track very well. Depending on the model, the features such as resolution, sensor size, all scale, but all of them share the same basic set of core features. AI hand gesture control, AI voice control, AI auto tracking, wide clear image, highly polished software, and solid construction. Your primary use case will always be as a webcam, and for this there are many choices out there. Some prefer to sit closer or zoom in to fill out the shot, but then you risk not being centered or falling out of the shot if you move around a little bit. All webcams are the same with slight variations, except the OBSBOT is unique. When they are in operation, if you present your palm, the lights on them will blink and the camera will begin to track your face. All of that tracking processing is done within the camera, which preserves your computing power, which means it'll still work when you're offline at a remote job site. Present your palm again and the tracking stops, leaving the camera where it currently is. You could use that to transition from your desk over to a couch or to walk around to stretch for a longer meeting. Perhaps you just want to reposition, or perhaps you would like the camera to simply follow you all the time, so you could be a little bit more flexible. The tracking is not rudimentary. My testing with the tracking proved it to be so effective that the behavior that the camera is exhibiting is as if it's being guided by a real person who's watching the feed. Once the camera was tracking my face, I added and removed sunglasses, I hid behind my camera, obstructing more than 80% of my face, and it had no problem with that. And then I really wanted to push the difficulty by crossing in front and behind a second person. You would think that the camera might jump between the new and the old face, but the camera was never stumped. The camera never became confused. The camera knew me as more than a selection of pixels. It is really impressive, and honestly, you could stop watching the review right here, find the link in the description, and buy if you're in the market for a new webcam. We are testing different OBSBOT product levels, the Tiny 1080, the Tiny 4K, and the Tail Air. The newest Tail Air is a huge jump in features, and it's also a pretty good bump in price. With that camera, you will get some truly unique pro features that are very interesting to streamers, content creators, and professionals. Those extra features deserve their own video, but all OBSBOTs share the same basic features. The palm up gesture is AI tracking start-stop, but there's also zoom in, zoom out, which is hand control in the shape of an L. Standing in the frame, if you present the camera an L-shaped hand, the camera will toggle between zoomed in and zoomed out. And that leads nicely to what I said at the start, which is having a more zoomed in webcam is nice. If your camera tracks smoothly with as much precision as this, you are finally able to zoom in closer in meetings or streams without ever falling out of shot. Being zoomed in closer has some advantages. It blurs out and obstructs the background a little bit better because there's less of it and people see you better. It's more personal. If you decide to use the zoom feature on the Tiny 1080, you can see a little bit more noise, but it's perfectly suitable for day-to-day conference calls. This was the main reason that they offered the Tiny 4K, which I bought to test. With twice the resolution, you retain 1080p at 2x zoom. You have more pixels to play with, you end up with a better non-zoomed picture. But when you zoom in on the Tiny 4K, there's no digital undersampling. It retains its high quality zoomed in because it's still a pure 1080 stream. All of these cameras come with magnetic mounts to mount to the monitor. You can mount them to a tripod. They use USB-C and all have removable wires. The Tiny 4K is a little bit more expensive, but it also comes with a travel case. And I mention this because it might be a deciding factor if you need to be more portable. When you're zoomed in, the camera will also optimize its tracking speed to compensate for the more narrow field of view. If you need even better control over the framing and image, all of that can be dialed in within the software. And that OBSBOT Center is a thick piece of software. Along the top, you may drop down a settings page for each camera if several are plugged in at the same time, and this would be specifically required for if you're streaming to Twitch or there's a multi-image conference call. Within console, you can adjust the tracking aim point to frame your shoulders up or focus on just your face. You can manually aim and zoom the camera here, but you also may register 3 memory point hotkeys. The direction and the zoom are always remembered when they're recalled. So save 1 could be aimed at your face at 1.2 zoom. Save 2 could be aimed at a second person sitting in the room at 2 times zoom to potentially offset some extra distance. And save 3 could spin around and zoom out wide to show off a whiteboard, or maybe just look out the window for when you're on a break. And these are all super easy to program. Within the image tab, you also have autofocus or global, exposure, white balance, contrast, brightness, sharpness, and hue. With a little bit of care placed on lighting, I didn't need to manually set any of these. The auto image settings worked great. Everything always looked good. You also have some beauty filters ranging from very light to very aggressive. You have the general settings such as firmware, power down timers, and the info for each camera. The camera will detect that it's not being used and it'll automatically tilt down when not in use. You can also manually tilt it down with a finger to force it to sleep, and you can flip it up to wake it up. You can operate the camera in landscape or portrait mode. You can adjust the AI noise and audio settings, and yes, there's even a microphone port on all models. Like anything, you initially spend time watching the camera work because it's new, but quickly, and once you've seen how reliably it works, you're just going to get on with the job of streaming. On to the next meeting with friends or colleagues, and I cannot underscore how many times people stop the conversation to ask what camera I'm using. They notice the quality, and they all remark on the tracking. Closing out the features, there's a small wireless remote that can control all of these smaller cameras. I didn't test the one for the mini cameras, but I did test the Bluetooth remote that goes with the tail air set, and that worked very well. Both remotes function the same. Make sure that you choose the one that's rated for your specific camera, and with the remote, you can manually stop tracking, you can point the camera around, you can manually zoom in and out, and then you can manually register or recall the 3 presets for all 3 cameras. I think the coolest thing is you're not limited to seated anymore. You can move around. If you're in a conference call and the camera's tracking, you can just stand up and it'll continue to track. The possibilities and new flexibility is what makes this idea so strong. As a content creator, you can have an unboxing video with 2 different angles tracked on a hotkey. You don't need 2 cameras, you have 2 different angles. A cooking video can track the talent around and then at the push of a button, track the cutting board and then quickly track over to the frying pan, all from one camera. You no longer need multiple cameras to control multiple streams, but you can actually have multiple cameras that can all track 3 different things. So I'm going to stop there because this is a lot to digest for the standard OBSBOT cameras. The tail air does all of that plus more. The extra features that I really appreciate allow me to be more flexible, and they're not found anywhere else. The tracking isn't just good, it's really good. It's great. There's a level of deduction, a level of AI intelligence in how it deals with adversity. I've tried to make it fail. I tried very hard to make it fail by presenting it with multiple people to distract the tracking, putting pictures of faces around my face. I tried backlighting my head, I tried side lighting my head, I tried very low light, and I tried color light. Only the absolute worst case scenario gave it trouble, which is why I'm so impressed. It is a premium product at a premium price, but as soon as you activate that tracking system, there's no comparison. People on the other end of calls always notice that you're framed and shot, and people on the other end of calls have commented on the clarity of the video. Thank you very much for spending your time with me. If you liked the video and got something out of it, please consider sharing it with a friend. Stream safe.